Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I'm joined today by Dale, Owen. David's running a little bit late, but he'll be here in about 5 or 10 minutes. We are going to do a deep dive on the Michigan State draft class for 2026. But before we do that, it's Monday. It's another week at Draft Professor. Dale, how is the school year break treating you?
It's going good, a lot of free time, a lot of stuff around the house that, I can do and keep myself busy. There's never a lack of things to do there.
Cool. And Owen, like where are we in the summer hockey league schedule right now?
So we're ramping up the playoff season. I just came from hockey today. That's why I'm a bit low energy. Today was also the day I decided that my ramping up, going back to the gym, was going to hit the highest mark. And then it's like 85 degrees outside here, and there's no AC or ventilation in the hockey place, so it was like 95. And we were short bench, so I was playing most of the time. So I went from killing myself at the gym to then killing myself at hockey, and then killing myself watching tape today. So I was up. I've been up and grinding for a while now, so I'm a little lower energy. This is what I was driving through my day to get to, so I'm hopefully going to be able to pick it up a little bit here. But we're going to the playoffs for both leagues. The Monday one's probably going to be done after next week. We're not that great, so playoffs were going to be one and done. But the Sunday league, which is the NBHL, the National Ball Hockey League, that one's the playoffs start in 2 weeks, I think. And our team's top 3 seed, so that one might last a little bit longer.
Floor hockey, ice hockey, roller hockey.
Floor hockey. Both are floor hockey. I played ice hockey from kindergarten to freshman year of high school. Never learned to rollerblade. So it's been a while since I've ice skated. Never learned to rollerblade, and I'm not too interested in trying to get all the gear and equipment that it takes to play either of those. So running around in my sneakers is good enough for me.
Cool. And one of the things about, like, as we do this as Draft Professor, right? Different draft professors go in with different philosophies, right? Dale has a draft guide that he shares, and that probably has 300, 250, 300 players in it. Whereas Owen, he says, Jim, give me the player list that we're talking about this week, and he watches those players and just different evaluation techniques. So Owen, you saw some players preparing for this that you had not seen before, right?
Right, yeah. So I actually, so you asked me what I was the one who picked this school for this week, because I had Newt has been doing stuff for my channel where he's been doing his top 10 quarterbacks, top 10 tight ends for this upcoming season. And his top 10 quarterbacks, number 6 had Childs on it, and his tight ends had Velling on it. So I was like, okay, there's some Michigan State guys on this list that Newt's been putting out. I'm sure they have some other guys there, and they did, obviously, so we're going to talk about them today. But I was intrigued and wanted to watch those guys, especially after hearing Newt talk about them. So I'm glad to say that me and Newt are starting it off early with major disagreements on where we are with these guys. So that'll get fun, and I hope he can be in the chat today to hear that one out. I promoted it specifically for him. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I had heard names. Actually, to be honest with you, I heard Childs before. I never heard anyone else's name that I've watched. And then I came into this, watched it clean slate, and then I have my notes and stuff I have prepared for this after watching that.
Awesome. So to give the audience a preview, we're going to be talking about Aiden Childs, Aiden Childs, quarterback, Malik Spencer, safety, Jack Velling, tight end. I think those 3 players are likely going to be on most boards. And then we're going to dive deeper. Guard Connor Moore, linebacker Wayne Matthews III, offensive lineman Matt Gulbin, and then probably some 2027 players, Stanton Ramil, Jordan Hall, Jalen Thompson. But the star of the day is Aiden Childs. So, Dale, what did you have on Aiden Childs?
And he's one who's not in the draft guide as of now because I didn't really have him with my initial quarterbacks. I've got a lot of guys. He's more with the 2027. Depending how the season goes, he could probably be in either one. But obviously, he's on a lot of people's boards, like our buddy Newt. I don't think I would be as high on him, But so he's going into his junior season. He's got good size. He's 6'3", 217. Pretty good arm strength. He's got really good mobility. But he's got to do better with his processing speed and improve his decision-making and accuracy. He had 13 touchdowns last year and 11 interceptions. So that touchdown to interception ratio, not good. And just on the surface, it's like, well, how could this guy be in the draft class? Because the traits are really good overall. And he played really well in the second half of the season. So the second half of the season, his numbers was much improved. I can't remember exactly what they were off the top of my head, but I want to say toward the end, it was like 8 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. So he started, doing a lot better, taking care of the football. Good athlete, can throw on the run, very effective with play action. And he's got good deep ball accuracy when he sets his feet. Obviously, cutting down on turnovers is going to be the biggest thing for him. And Maryland game was one of his better games. If people want to go check him out, that's probably a good place to start, especially if you want to see the best of him, to maybe include him with your class here for 2026 draft class. But if I was to put him with the 2026 quarterbacks right now, I would probably think more like mid to late day 3 personally is where I would view him. But as of right now, I think this 2027, because he's got a lot of things he needs to work on and improve, but he's got a whole season still to do that.
So Owen, tell us what
we're
Aidan Chiles.
Let's start out with some heat there, because I came into this now I do have to preface this that my grading scale, this is my first time doing like projection wise, like going out further out, and I've done this for a few weeks now because we've done a few episodes, but for the most part my grading scale has stayed the same. It's going to be, I'm trying to adjust it more so to be for what I can foresee going forward, but for me, it's going to be a lot of the traits I have here, and then my thoughts of how this could progress as well. So for some background, Chiles was a transfer from Oregon State, played 100 snaps there, went right from that to being the starter for Michigan State, who runs a very pro-style offense. He's doing a lot of, like Dale said, play action, under center. He's turning his back to the defense, turning back around and having to read the defense post-snap. I do think there's some quickening of his processing that he needs to get done, but for the most part, as someone who's has the time to sit down, pause it, rewind, look at all the route combinations, look at the coverage post snap from when his eyes are getting around, I felt he got to the right read more times than he didn't. There were times where it got slower and his protection did have to hold up for him. So I do think that can get better, and especially in the second season starting, especially in an offense that's requiring so much from him mentally, I think that can be somewhere he improves. I do think he has like good talent when it comes to his arm. I relatively, when it comes to deeper ball accuracy, I do think he has that there. He has some good touch, especially over the middle. When he's pushing it down the field, he can plant and drive. He's got some good pop in the short area. For me, with the turnovers, especially, I watched all 20 turnover-worthy plays that PFF credited him with, and I got to say, I didn't go through and do the numbers, but I think like it had to be like 60% of them are going to be some things that I'm looking that he needs to clean up with his overall profile, and some things that Dale touched on, which was decision-making, a lot of it for me for the most part. There were some that like the ball got away from him, his accuracy really wavered, especially when he's going towards the outside of the hashes, when he's rolling out, or he's trying to navigate defenders both high and low in his route combinations. He gets a little thrown off there. That was about 2 or 3 of the turnover-worthy plays he had. But a lot of them for me, and the things like I was sitting there, had some of the best plays I watched. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm really seeing it with this guy who's super young and doing all these things, advanced things at a younger quarterback. Doing it so early with the talent he has is really promising. But then also I'm screaming at my laptop, hit the check down, run with it. Stop looking down the field. Just get the yards with your legs. And I think like 60% of his turnover plays, I was looking at him like, okay, he had the running back there. He had his tight end, the flat. He could have just, instead of keeping his eyes downfield and he had some open yardage, could have got like 3 or 4 plus yardage. He's keeping his eyes down there and not just picking up the yards with his feet. So I think a lot of what I criticize him for is going to be coming down to him cleaning up his decision-making, getting faster in the offense, maturing more as a quarterback, especially, like I said, in his first year, only had played 100 snaps previously. He's going to be a true junior next year, again, in a pro-style offense. So if he can find his checkdowns more frequently, especially when that's going to tie into get him getting through his progressions more often, and then using his legs more as a runner when it's a pass play. Like they use him a lot in the design run game, but I do think that when it comes down, the play breaks down, he has to escape the pocket. He's too much sold on I need to find the play down the field. I need to get this big throw because it's a broken play. There's going to be a guy open. If he just started using his legs more often, I think those turnover-worthy plays with his arm are going to cut down by a significant margin. The same thing is if he can find the guys in the flats, find his running backs, find guys that aren't down the field where he's trying to make the big hero play.
Okay. And Owen, like your profile on Childs, like, do you have a flavor? Is he a day 1, day 2, day 3? Like I have, listening to you, I know where I would put him, and that would be day 1. Like me listening to you, that sounds like a day 1 quarterback. But
yeah, I think I'd feel comfortable if I was a team in the back half of the first or even more towards the middle ones where I have a system in place where I can, especially if he comes out after this season, only being a 2-year starter, so young at the position. If I have a team that I have a set system, I have maybe an established veteran quarterback already in place. Similar to Bill tweeted this out when we were talking about on Twitter earlier today when I was watching Childs' film. He compared him a lot to Jordan Love, and I think that Jordan Love pathway where he's going to be able to get time to learn the offense, get mature more, sitting behind a guy like maybe like a Rams or even like I don't even know. There's so many different teams that have quarterback needs, but not a lot of them have established starters. So I think the Rams is like the one that immediately goes to your mind. But you have him go there and be able to have a player in front of him that is the unquestioned starter. He's able to sit on the bench and learn this offensive scheme, and then he's able to slowly progress his way into becoming that player. And especially if it gets better, I think he cements it. If he gets better with his mental processing this upcoming season with more time on task, more games, more starting experience, and he cuts down on his turnovers, like I said, do the things he did. So I think he could be a first-round quarterback. I think if the draft happened tomorrow, based on traits, the ability of what he showed was so young and in such a pro-style system, I think I would still take a swing on him late day 1 or maybe early day 2 if you were kind of scared off by how raw he is with decision-making and some of those other decisions he has, or some of those other things he has to clean up from being just an immature player. So I do think there's upside that would get him land him in there. So I do have him around that area, yes.
So Dale, how about you? You said that your grade right now on Childs, you're looking at a day 3 player.
If I had to stick him with 2026 class, I just think he's a long way off. And like I said, he has a whole nother season to prove it. But I think that this season he could work in, even for me, I would still say like he could work his way into day 2. I don't know. There's just a lot of quarterbacks that I've watched that I like a lot more than him. So kind of comparing him to a lot of those guys, I just don't have him near that high for first round area for me right now. And like I said, right now I kind of got him like 2027 area too.
That is fair because only other quarterbacks I've watched outside of him were Cade Klubnik and then Tucker Gleason. So like I have no frame of like where he would sit amongst the rest of the quarterback class. Yeah. I know it's going to be one of the more stronger ones up top. But if I'm a team that needs a quarterback and has that ability where I can sit a guy, I would look at him as opposed to some of the other guys that did. And then even like Klubnik, I have him. I feel like he has some stuff that Childs naturally brings talent-wise that Klubnik doesn't have as much as him when it comes to like arm talent and functional athleticism. I think Klubnik could beat him out on the 40-yard dash. But for me, with Childs, there was a lot of maneuverability, short area quickness, making guys miss, especially in the pocket. He had some short area quickness that I really liked that was utilized better, more so than what Klubnik did, because Klubnik, a lot of it was he panicked under pressure, wasn't the most poised when the pocket broke down. And whereas Childs, I still think can improve in that. There were games against like Ohio State where they threw a ton of blitzes at him, and he was able to stand in the pocket, make throws, show some poise. But also when the play did break down and he had to escape, he was able to work within confined spaces and find room to work and maneuver that pocket more so and use his footwork to avoid defensive linemen and throwing lanes. So there was some stuff that came naturally to him as such a quarterback, even when it doesn't come down to the processing stuff, just some of the more technique and instinctual elements that he showed off more functional athleticism than I would say like 40-yard dash combine athleticism that a guy like Klubnik does. And then he has such rawness when it comes to starting that he showed these little nuances in his game that if I was a team, I'd be like, I'm banking on that to continue to grow if I cannot know what happens this upcoming season.
Right.
So David, you missed Aiden Childs at the beginning.
Okay.
And the fact that Owen has 2 hockey teams that are advancing to the playoffs that he's playing with. That's what you've missed. But
okay.
What do
Yeah, I
you
can talk
have?
about Aiden.
Well, and
He's
Dale's
one-
enjoying his summer vacation. I don't want to discount that either.
Yeah.
all right, that's a good recap. Yeah, I can speak a little bit on Aiden. I didn't hear any of what y'all said. I have a 4th round grade on him heading into the season. I don't know what everybody else had. He has shown improvement overall, especially in reducing his turnovers and interceptions last year. He has a strong quarterback frame. He has risen during crucial moments, in my opinion, like what Owen was stating versus Ohio State. He was named a team captain as a sophomore, which is a trait NFL teams just absolutely love to see. He's got a pretty quick release, which will be even more effective when the game slows down to him. You know, he's got to improve the processing and start understanding the game at a higher level. But he has the arm to make every throw. He extends plays with, athleticism and his legs. His completion percentage, needs to tick up. But again, that goes back to the game slowing down for him once he understands and just starts reading defenses faster. And I don't think he'd hold on to the, ball as long. But a big season awaits if he, takes the opportunity to rise up the draft board, so to speak, because he has the opportunity to do that. I think he has a lot of the traits to do that as well.
Okay, so I have a question about, let's say, quarterbacks that were drafted in 2024 and where Childs is as a prospect. And I'm not comping him to the play style. I'm comping him to how polished of a prospect is he. So if you had to compare how polished Jackson Dart was as a prospect to how polished Aiden Childs is, which of the two, Dale, do you think is a more polished prospect?
Right now, for me, probably Jackson Dart. Like if we were saying Jackson Dart even going into last year, I would think he was a little ahead of him. Probably had a little more game action and experience to this point as well. At this time last year even. So, I would probably say Dart's ahead. Milroe has so much work to do as a passer. I think he's more advanced as a passer than Milroe, obviously, but yes, probably somewhere in between those two guys is where he's at. For me, I just think he's young and he's got a lot of work still left to do, which is why I think he's probably a kid that stays in college for this next season and then goes back for one more to really get that experience. And then he certainly could be in that, first, second round conversation, I think, for sure at that point.
And David, how would you rate Milroe, Dart, Childs as prospects with everything that you've seen last draft cycle and leading into this one?
Like in comparison with Aiden?
Yeah, and I'm really just saying, like, how polished of a prospect. I realize that they're not the same type of player. Like, I listened to all three of you. It's like they're not the same player. I get it.
Heading into this season, because I guess my comp for the other two is kind of like after that season ended, but he'd be third on the list, like Dale said. I mean, he's closer to Jalen Milroe, and if he takes baby steps or slightly bigger than baby steps this year, he's probably coming back in 27. So I would say he's third on that list as far as polish at this point, but closer to Milroe. But I think at the end of the season, we all saw a much further advanced player, and that's probably what Aiden Childs is hoping he ends up doing in 2025.
Okay. And Owen, if you had to look at how you see Childs as a prospect versus Dart or Milroe, what's your assessment?
So I wasn't a huge fan of Milroe mechanically, still not. I think a lot of times his accuracy especially was poorly tied to his footwork. His footwork was all over the place. He had a great arm, but I felt like he needs the fundamentals stripped down and rebuilt up when it comes to being able to sit in a pocket and make a throw. And even to an extent, I think Dart is more well off right now as a polished prospect than Childs just because he has starting experience. It doesn't help that his offense was very much the antithesis of Childs running a super pro style offense at Michigan State. Like Childs as a young player had so much thrown on his plate, which is why I'm kind of giving him a bit of a leeway with the processing part, where for me, he made correct throws and made plays that I was like, as a third eye viewer, I'm watching him. I'm like, okay, the ball against this coverage, this is the route being run. The ball needs to be here. the ball got there, it was just a tick later than you'd want it to be, where he's not getting to that guy in rhythm where you would want it to reduce him taking hits, reduce the pocket collapsing on him, forcing him to have some more errant throws. Like, his ideas are there. They're just a tick later. He just needs to see more game action and game speed to really speed up that processing clock. And as well as, like I said, getting through his progressions and finding that check down. Like, that's where Childs needs to progress. Whereas with Dart, it was a lot of he's more accurate right now. He has the mechanics that Childs has compared to Milroe, but he had the accuracy already put down, and the offense he was running, he had full command of that offense. Like, he understood what, even though it's not a pro offense, he understood where his guys were going to be, what he needed to do to excel in that offense specifically. So it makes you think that he's going to be able to pick up a more pro style offense for the Giants this year. So I think unfairly, because he has that extra year on him, and I didn't really watch him going into last season, so I can't really speak on that. But for Dart coming out of the draft this year, I feel like he's more polished, he's more pro-ready than Childs would be right now. But I do think Childs has a leg up on a guy like Milroe, where Milroe mechanically, I think, is behind Childs at the moment with his footwork. I really love Childs' footwork specifically. When maneuvering the pocket, keeping his base when he was throwing. Where he got off target a lot was when he was on a moving base and he wasn't able to set, throw, and plant and drive. So Milroe, I think, mechanically is behind Childs. I think Milroe also wasn't the best processor either. It was a lot of one read and run type of quarterback. So for me, I probably slot Childs ahead of Milroe right now when it comes to having the game mentally, mechanically, and then also I can see him progressing further forward to the point where he can surpass Dart if the season goes the way I anticipated going for him, where he has full control of a pro-style offense, working with his back to the defense, comes up and boom, 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 gets to his processing, and starts to show some of that more advanced level and quick thinking with his play. So for right now, I think it goes Dart, Childs, Milroe, but I do think Childs has every opportunity this year, and if he goes back for another season, especially so, to pass Dart, because I was also not the biggest fan of Dart as a prospect either.
Okay. So this is a loaded question. Okay. Loaded question because, the next player we're going to do is tight end Jack Velin. But it surprises me that if we have a quarterback, I hear bells ringing for Childs. For the most part, I've heard the same thing from all three of you. You just rate those things differently. Right.
Yeah.
But my question is, for having a quarterback that good, is there a reason that Michigan State doesn't have more skill players on her player list? Like, are the guys he's throwing to underclassmen?
One is probably their best player, and Nick Marsh to me, because he was only, I think, a true freshman last year. He's 6'3", 209, so he's not, and I think he's a true sophomore going into his true sophomore season, so he will not be draft eligible this year, but he was really impressive. He had almost 650 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was like their number one as a true freshman. And then they have tried to address that because they did go out and I believe they picked up 2 transfers, Krishan McCray and Omari Kelly, one from Middle Tennessee and one from Kent State. So they're banking on kind of remaking that wide receiver core for him and getting him a little more speed because, like, Kelly's 6 foot 180. Like I said, senior transfer from Middle Tennessee, had 869 yards, 4 touchdowns. McCray, he's only 5'10", 163, so a lot smaller guy, but he's a junior transfer from Kent State, 705 yards, 9 touchdowns in 2024, and then he had 610 yards and 4 touchdowns as a freshman. So these guys have produced at a little lower level of competition at Kent State and Middle Tennessee, but they're guys that have produced at wide receiver, and you're combining that with Nick Marsh and Jack Velling at tight end, who we're getting ready to talk about. I think the weapons will be a lot better than what he had last year overall.
Okay. So, Dale, that's awesome research that you have that, because I didn't because they weren't on the player list that was given to the chat. So, Owen or David, do either of you have anything on the players that Dale just mentioned?
So McCray was at Kent State. I was actually going to throw him in for my MAC list, and I had like 7 guys that were going to be my MAC to watch list because I was going through their stat leaders from last year. And I also knew a bit from having working at UB. We game planned for Kent State last year. It was our last game of the season. So we knew kind of what their top weapons were. He was one of them. I didn't end up watching, obviously, because I realized, he's going to Michigan State this season. I probably should have just to prep for this episode, but didn't think that far ahead. But for me, I think, especially in the MAC, you can have a lot of those players. Like UB's number one receiver is Victor Snow, who's 5'7", 5'8", 170. Like he's a smaller guy who wins with speed, can win in space. And even at that level, if you're getting into contested catch situations, you're a smaller guy, you can still win those against some of the lower level DBs. So I'm not surprised that McCray, being an undersized guy, goes to Michigan State, where I don't know who number 3 was last year, but he was another guy who on film, you'd watch it and be like, okay, there's not a ton of speed at the wide receiver room in this offense. And he was one of the ones to be like, okay, that guy has some juice, but every time I'd see the ball tossed to him when he was open, he'd drop it. So it's like they had pieces, and you didn't really love what he was throwing to, but you're like, okay, you can work with this, but until they, sold him on the catch point, especially when he was delivering some good balls. So I do support that they go out and get these kind of lower level guys. And I'm not surprised that a guy McCray who's undersized but excelled in a conference where you can win with lesser physical traits is going to come in and try to bring that kind of element they're missing, a smaller undersized guy who can get into some space and allow Childs to find some underneath throws to really progress that offense more, especially if they have a guy like Marsh on the outside. Velling is another big body target. They needed some of that speed and shiftier guys on the inside.
Okay. And David, do you want to kick off what you had on tight end Jack Velling from Michigan State?
Yeah, sure. Let me get back over to him. Most of these guys I have only watched like 2 games of, to be fair, 2-3 games of each guy. But Velling is a guy I had a day 3 grade on like right away. He's kind of quarterback friendly. He's a good route runner. He gets open down the seam. He's been productive in the red zone. I mentioned earlier about team captains being a trait that NFL teams like. Well, being productive in the red zone intrigues NFL general managers quite a lot as well. I think his draft value ultimately comes down to how he can improve upon his blocking. I think that is something that a lot of people who watch will be paying close attention to this year. And, if he does get drafted, he adds value on the special teams right away. So that's an added bonus for him as well. But overall, I think he's got a lot of, quarterback friendly type traits, but he definitely has to improve upon his blocking.
Okay. Dale, what do you have on Velling?
Yeah, so 6'5", 246, senior tight end. He was originally at, I believe it was Oregon State, if I'm correct on that. And he had 8 touchdowns in 2023, and he only had 1 last year. So it's like, oh, what happened? Well, he just didn't get in the end zone, but he still had career highs with 36 catches, 411 yards. As David mentioned, I got kind of similar things. Good route runner. He can run after the catch a little bit. He's not going to be ultra elusive or anything like that, but he gives you something there with physicality after the catch. Tough, reliable over the middle, stretches the seam, and has reliable hands. So he's kind of that nice safety valve at tight end that quarterbacks love. And I also had that he needs to improve specifically blocking as a run blocker. That's something that's kind of been a weakness of his. He's got to get better there. I have him kind of as like a 3rd, 4th round type guy. But honestly, I feel like with the tight ends, it's very wide open. Like I have Kenyon Sadiq as my tight end 1 from Oregon, and that is pure projection. Because, he was behind Ferguson last year there at Oregon. I mean, he still played, and I liked what I saw when he did play, but I feel like tight end is very wide open. So with a good season, he starts getting back in the end zone a little more like he did 2 years ago. I think he could work his way up and be, somewhere in that top 5 tight ends in this class for sure. He's probably one of my favorite guys from Michigan State that I think will be in this draft class because he is a senior. He came back. He could have left last year, but he decided to come back this year.
And Owen, what do you have on Jack Velling?
Yeah, so this was the promo I put out with me disagreeing with Newt and getting our first disagreement of the season going on because in the top 10 tight ends video that Newt posted for my channel, he had Velling at like tight end 4, and we called him one of his or tight end 5, called him one of his my guys already early in this process. And I listened to what he had to say, and I didn't necessarily disagree with it. It was just when I dove into the tape, I wasn't overly impressed. I have him as a round 5 guy right now. And I mean, I can definitely see it upgrading. I think he's a smart player, works a lot with his mental. He does the small things right, especially when it comes to like running pick plays down the seam, being able to rub guys off of the other receivers, being able to open up space for unselfish football plays. I do think he is a decent route runner, understands leverage, and can get open in the flats and up the seam especially. His hands are good, not great. He had a couple drops. I didn't really put a lot of those on him. A lot of those were Childs being inaccurate in those 3 drops he did have this past season. For me, it came down to 2 things. We kind of already touched on it with his blocking. There were plays where he was getting put on his ass by linebackers, and it's like he was more a nuisance to get in guys' way. He wasn't even like a neutralizer where like he didn't win the rep, he didn't lose the rep, he was just got in the guy's way, and the running back was able to make a play off of him or win the play. He was actively losing, and if he ever did something positive in the run game, it was because he just was physically an obstacle someone had to run around. He never really cleared guys out. So it leads me to believe if he can't improve that or his functional strength, he's going to be like more of a move tight end 2 kind of guy, sniffer tight end who can get out into space and attack some of these smaller defenders. So that's probably where he's going to be most comfortable as a run blocker. And he does have some of the receiving acumen to do that as well. But for me, the other thing that I didn't really love about him was I didn't love his athletic profile. Like he's a big guy, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he can definitely do some damage, get some tough yardage up the field. But he was kind of slow-footed in and out of his routes. Like he understood leverage and got open on like some shorter cutting routes where you'd want to get your tight end there for safety valve purposes. But he didn't create a lot of separation. When he did get wide open down the field, he was oftentimes caught up to by linebackers and safeties. So he's not one of these guys that is going to be a freak athlete that's going to be able to attack and be this vital offensive chess piece. So he's going to be like a tight end 2 that needs to be like a more receiving tight end, but doesn't really have the pop as an athlete. So there's a lot of stuff that I think he needs to either improve upon, whether it's functional strength or somehow get some more speed, quicken up that foot speed, or he's going to be kind of a guy you draft, expect him to be tight end 2, tight end 3, and he'll live on NFL rosters, but I don't ever expect him to be like a starter or someone that we're talking about, on Sundays is like game planning for.
Okay. So I don't know how a listener, let's say, synthesizes all that. I heard the same evaluation on Velling from all 3 of you. Even if somebody said round 5, somebody said round 3, 4, it still sounded like everybody saw the same tight end.
Yeah. Probably, as of right now, he's more, I think Owen said it best, a tight end 2 or 3, but he'll live on rosters for quite a while. But how much he plays when he's on them, it's going to depend if he can block better.
Yeah, and I think something that should be pointed out with tight ends, and like tight ends take a long time to develop. Some might even say it may take a tight end longer to develop than a quarterback. It might take you 3 or 4 years to know if the tight end that you drafted developed into the player that you thought he would become. So I think there's a reason that a lot of tight ends go in round 4 and 5. It's because you don't get an immediate impact from the position. So everything there sounded like, yeah, that sounds like a tight end that we will be covering a lot this draft cycle.
Yeah. And I have him at tight end 10. So if Newt has him at 4, I just want to also say I'm disagreeing with you, Newt. I just wanted to jump in on the disagreeing with Newt,
Yeah, we can all jump on that. We'll all have a chance to find something that we can disagree on with Newt. So
love to see it.
Yep. But Newt is choosing the opposite path of Dale because he's a school teacher too. But he told me, I want to take the summer off, Jim. Like, no draft podcast also. So. Cool.
He's taking a real break,
Oh, no rest for the wicked, I guess.
No.
Okay, the next Michigan State player, safety Malik Spencer. Oh, and you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, this is another player that I felt like I was lower on than I feel like we're projecting these guys, obviously. I'm not super big fan of him. I feel like he's going to be more of a day 3 guy for me. I have him around 4 or 5. It's kind of similar grade to where I had Velling. Just because for me, I think he showed he can play special teams a lot. He made some good tackles as a punt coverage unit. He's played that every year he's been at Michigan State. With being more of a starter this year, he ramped down a bit from where he was last year. But I still think for safeties especially, I like to grade him on if they can provide special teams to your team, because if you're not going to be a starting safety, you're going to have to make your bread on those teams, especially to be able to stick on a roster. So he has that ability, and I think it comes down to the fact that I think he can be a sure-handed tackler. There's some plays where I definitely think when he's running the lane, he's in space, he's not able to really secure, break down properly. But when he's closer to the line of scrimmage and he's playing more of that buzzed down, split safety, strong safety role, he can definitely make some impact in the run game. So I do think there's a pathway for him to be like a lower end starter. You probably wouldn't prefer to be out there potentially in a split safety system. Don't really love like his range, or when he's manning coverage in space, especially. I don't think he's at his most comfortable. He had 3 either interceptions or he had 2 interceptions and 1 dropped interception, so 3 potential interceptions. All 3 of them occurred when it was within like the 10 yards or closer for in the red zone there. So it was a lot tighter, confined spaces where he was able to use some of the more quicker thinking and zone instincts to come off of his guy and undercut routes or pick off the botched field goal by Michigan, if you want to count that one. But all of that was with when the field got compressed and got smaller. And I feel like that's where he does his best work, when he's buzzing down towards the line of scrimmage, when the field gets more compressed. He's, I think, a true split, strong safety type player for me. And he can help in the run game. I think if you're going to draft him, you're drafting him to be a special teams player that can maybe eventually step in as a down the road starting safety for you, but you're never going to want to bank on him to be your answer at that position for me personally. So I'm not the biggest fan of him. I think if he can unlock another step athletically or really, really be like an elite run defending safety, I think you can get some higher grades for him for me. But I think he's just more limited versatility wise for me, that I'm not super encouraged with being like a pounding the table for him.
Dale, how about you?
Yeah, so another guy that'll be a senior, 6'1", 200 pounds. His production went down from 73 tackles in 23 to only 44, but he did miss 3 games. So I don't know if he was also injured for part of the season last year. So maybe if that's some of the tape, and, you know, if he looked a lot better in 2023, because it seems like, you know, a lot of Michigan State people are a lot higher on him than kind of even what I feel from what I watched in the games I watched from 2024. So maybe that's part of it. But I thought he has some decent ball skills. Honestly, I'm kind of with Owen, though. I think maybe day 3 right now at best. And if that's the case, he's going to have to probably make it due to special teams to stick on a 53 early on. And then maybe he can build on that. But maybe he puts together a big season. But it's one of those guys, like, I've got to see something more than I saw last year from him to really, you know, think he's going to be much of an impact guy at the next level.
And David, what did you have in Malik Spencer, safety from Michigan State? And David, you're muted.
I had a day 3 on him as well. To be fair, I had everyone that I have ranked as draftable is day 3 except Aiden Childs. Everyone else was day 3 on my list. But 3 of his good qualities are leadership on the defensive side of the ball, dependability, and his versatility, being able to move all around the field. He's been used as a free safety, a nickel, or corner. He has a good motor. He has above average play recognition. I think Owen mentioned that. I think he does, read quarterbacks pretty well. He has good instincts. He's a solid tackler. He had 117 tackles, I think, over the last 2 seasons. And his pathway is to contribute on special teams. His range likely is what will keep him as a safety at the NFL level. As probably a rotational, type of guy at that, level. But I like him. I think he, has room to improve again. He needs to get more starts under his belt at the collegiate level. But again, I just see a day 3 guy. But as far as all the other guys we are going to cover, I think I only have 2 more with grades to even be drafted. So.
Okay.
As far as this ranking goes, he's probably like 3rd on my list, which is trying to stay positive, pretty good.
Yeah. So at Draft Professor, we're going to cover players, and some of them don't get drafted. So I think this fall we have 450 players on our list, and there's only 257 or 262 picks in the draft. So there's going to be players we cover that don't get drafted. That's okay. We will be as positive as we can. Absolutely. Okay, so a couple of other players a little bit further down the board for Michigan State. Guard Connor Moore. Dale, what do you have on Connor Moore?
So 6'5", 310, be a redshirt junior. So a lot of those guys, sometimes when they are going after their fourth season, they do decide to come out. So that's possible. He is transferring from Montana State. He was second team All Big Sky, played mostly at left tackle, but on the depth chart for Michigan State, it looks like that penciled him in at right tackle. I think he could probably play some guard for them potentially as well if right tackle don't work out. He had a 69.3 pass block grade, a 78 run block grade in 2024. But one thing, he does have 12 penalties over the last 2 years, so he's going to need to cut down on that. And then he's played over 1,600 snaps, and he, like I said, he has 2 years of eligibility remaining, so he may decide to use those. But he's definitely a guy with some potential, good size, pretty decent athleticism for an offensive lineman. So I think they're definitely going to try to keep him at tackle. And I think right tackle might be a good spot for him. And he could be a guy that could move up draft boards. Just got to kind of see how he does in the Big Ten this season.
Owen, what did you have on Connor Moore?
Yeah, so like kind of like what Dale said, it was a left guard play or left tackle and left guard player at FCS level. Michigan State, I was just pulling up their Sports Illustrated coverage of their team specifically, and they're talking about it's pretty much confirmed that he's going to be the right tackle for player for them. And I do think for a guy like him, he's 6'5", 309. I think for me, the move to right tackle either spells that's where he's maybe projecting best to the NFL, or if he's going to be moving into guard, he made the switch from left tackle to right tackle here because a lot of players, when you're at right tackle, a lot more of the responsibility, especially if you have like a typical like right-handed throwing quarterback, are going to be more so you're not on an island, you're not blindside blocking for the guy. You're asked to do some other things that can be more translatable to guard than maybe say a left tackle to. So I do think that's a good change because I do think he can move inside, and he showed a little bit of that when he was at Montana State. So for me, I do think I'm kind of with Dale that he's an intriguing player to see what the level of competition moving up to. He was getting offers from like Ohio State and I think it was Ohio State and Penn State. I think was the other ones that made offers to him. Or Ohio State and Cincinnati, and he chose Michigan State over both of them because he grew up a fan of them. So you have a guy who comes in, that player that was like other big time schools saw as like a hot commodity, a guy who come in and he's immediately going to be getting an opportunity to start on their offensive line after moving up in competition level. So there obviously is something that they saw at that level that makes them think that he can be someone who can catch up to that speed and still be on the outside. So I think that would be the biggest question mark for me for him this upcoming season is like, okay, can he handle the speed on the outside at a higher level of competition? Or are we going to see like this upcoming season, okay, he's going to need to either slide into guard for another season, or if he comes out this year because he just wants to capitalize on his first season at FBS football, is he going to be seen as more of a guard prospect specifically? I would like to see how he fares a right tackle at this level specifically.
And David, did you have anything on Connor Moore?
Yeah, I had a few notes. Mostly Dale and Owen covered it. A Montana State transfer, played mostly left tackle, but they did move him to right tackle. I had written, my notes said that he is probably more likely to be a guard in the NFL. He is intriguing, but needs to see how his transition goes against moving to Michigan State and facing better competition. And I feel like he could likely be eventually moved inside and stay another year. That's all I had on him.
Okay. And the next player is offensive lineman Matt Gulbin. David, did you have anything on Matt Gulbin?
Yeah, I actually had him as one of the people who I ranked as like a day 3 potential guy. Wake Forest transfer. He started every game for the Deacons last year. He's played a lot of snaps, and if my notes are right, he's only allowed a single sack last season. He ranked well nationally in run blocking grades. I believe it was a top 50 run blocking grade. He could benefit, in my opinion, by adding a little bulk. I liked his quote. He's hungry. He said he wanted to go somewhere where he could help a team win and set himself up for, stronger competition and, a shot at the NFL. So he has a lot of the character things you'd like. I think he's 6'4", 296. Is that what you guys have?
I had him at 315. I don't know where exactly I got that from, but yeah, big difference if he is 315 or 296.
So PFF has them listed at 6'4", 317.
Yeah, so if he's already up to that, then he's already added the bulk that I say he should add. So he's already on the right path. So
Good job, Matt Goldman.
Yeah, I'm looking it all up now to see what different websites have his height and weight. Owen, what did you have on Matt Galvin?
Soroka, just to help Dave out a little bit, it was 1 sack allowed last year on 483 pass block snaps, according to PFF Ultimate. So he was a good pass blocker for them when it came to limiting the amount of sacks and pressures he gave up. I think I can get his pressures numbers as well. He allowed 3 hits and 15 hurries, so he had a pressure rate of 3.9%, which is pretty good. For me, I think what is most exciting for Gulbin is that he's moving up and projecting to be a starting guard for this offense. And Dave kind of covered it where it was going to be especially if he added that weight on to get up to 317, he can prove to be like more of a people mover, ass kicker in the middle there. And being in this more pro heavy offense where you got operating under center, you got a fullback, you're going to be looking to attack with 2 tight ends and really run the ball and get downhill. I think a guy who's stepping up from Wake Forest, can I just say I hate Wake Forest's offense. I'm not sure if they run the same one they did when Sam Hartman was there, but I'm pretty sure they are. I absolutely despise it. And I hated watching any kind of like offensive line play or even quarterback play from when they did that stupid walk-up RPO delayed handoff crap. I hated it so much. If that's still the case of the running there, then he infinitely improved his chances at the NFL if he moved to Michigan State with this pro-style offense. Because I think a guy like him with the skill set we're anticipating him having, moving from an offense which is handcuffs you as a pro prospect to one where you're literally playing in a pro-style offense, I think will be a big benefit to him. It's not just a benefit to Childs or Velling where they're getting reps in an offense that is going to be translatable to the NFL at positions that are going to be a harder transition. Now you have a guy who can prove I can come in and play in NFL day one if he excels in this system.
Dale, how about you? What do you have on Galvin?
Pretty much similar to them. I do wonder, I don't know if you could find that, Owen, or not, if he is going to play center for them. I think that's what I had read somewhere, but I do know last year when he was at Wake Forest, he played left guard like all season, except for I think it was the bowl game. They moved him and he played center. Bowl game or one of the last games of the season. And then he had 76.4 pass block grade, 74.6 run block grade. So those are pretty good grades there. And then the 1 sack only given up. But I like that versatility, whether he's going to play guard or center. He has played both. So I think that's beneficial for him. And teams love versatility. So I do think, kind of like David said, that he's probably, a day 3 type prospect right now because of that versatility and how he's been able to be a pretty good pass blocker and not give up very many sacks.
Yeah, so our lads has him listed as their starting center, or at least projected starting center. And I have found here that they have his positional snaps broken down. And he played 711 snaps at left guard last season, but he had 119 at center at Wake Forest last year. So he had over 100 snaps of starting experience at center for Wake Forest. I'm not sure. It doesn't tell me specific games. I have to go into the actual film itself to break that down. I'm assuming, based on the numbers, it's probably the last 2 games of the season against Miami and Duke, because that was a collective 130 snaps right there, 120 snaps right there. So my assumption is that there was an injury early on in the Miami game. He switched to center from there. So I do think he's going to be their starting center this year. And even then, when talking about a guy moving to a pro-style offense and then also just becoming a center, if you can show that you have the high IQ and ability to mentally process through an offensive system that's going to be pro-oriented, especially in a position where you're going to need to be able to make calls and be that kind of quarterback of the offensive line, for lack of a better phrase, to have that be another opportunity for him to show to NFL teams, like, I can make this step from a team that didn't run that style of offense to step in year one, run this offense, and in the most pivotal position when it comes to identifying and communicating against the fronts.
Yeah, so I'm looking at PFF for like snap breakdown. So he played, it looks like, the entire game versus Duke at center. Left guard most of the season. There was like 3 games where he played 14, 18, and then 6 snaps. So I don't know if they were just rotating guys, but that was like games 5, 6, and 7 versus Louisiana, Lafayette, NC State, and Clemson. So just sporadically, sometimes they would put him in at center, it seems like, throughout those games. And then the Duke game, there's a full game tape if you want to see him at center, which is what it sounds like he's going to play for Michigan State this season.
And at least one of the tweets, as I was going through and building all the PR for the episode, Matt Gulbin was giving snaps to Aiden Childs in spring practices. So that was definitely the picture. It said Gulbin is taking snaps at center. So I think that builds into the narrative that the three of you are discussing. So that was Matt Gulbin, labeled as an offensive lineman for Michigan State, but we're probably going to flip that to center. That's something that I just learned.
But versatile, right? Because he's played a ton at left guard as well, so he can really, wherever they need him probably to play, however it shakes out, he can do either one.
He's gonna find a way onto Michigan State's offensive line next year, one way or another. He's gonna be a player for them.
Yeah.
And do we have Gulbin as definitely in the draft, or he still has eligibility remaining?
I think he's a redshirt senior, so should be definitely in the draft.
Okay.
I can double check this real quick. I'm just pulling up this 247 because I have his snap counts going back to 2021. So he would have redshirted 2021 if that was his freshman season. Just double checking. It is 2021. So he redshirted his 2021 season. 2022 he'd be redshirt freshman. 2023 redshirt sophomore. 2024 is redshirt junior. So this year is going to be redshirt senior year without any eligibility remaining. Luckily we don't have to deal with any more of the 2020 COVID for the most part BS extra year of free eligibility. So for the most part it's straightforward. He's going to be out.
Okay. So the last player that I had labeled as 2026, and you guys can correct me on this, was linebacker Wayne Matthews III. So, David, did you want to kick him off?
Yeah. In 2023, he I guess had like his breakout season with ODU. He had 135 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 9.5 tackles for loss. His challenge is going to be to produce at that same level in 2025 for Michigan State, but clearly the potential is there. I really like what I saw with him. So I asked somebody else another scout who I respect his opinion quite a bit, and he is really infatuated with him. He thinks he definitely can contribute to an NFL roster. He's physical, aggressive. He was the 3rd highest ranked linebacker in the transfer portal. And if he puts all of the promise into action on the field, he could be a sleeper that wakes everybody up by the end of the season. It seems like he has a lot of potential. But again, he didn't really do much in 2024. He's got to get back to that same 23 level, though. Against much harder competition, I might add.
And Dale, what did you have on him?
Yeah, and he was down to 33 tackles in his first season at Michigan State from that 135. An incredible season he had for Old Dominion before he transferred. But I did read that he missed some time with injury and probably was playing through injury, so I think that's a big part of it. I think they're expecting him to be healthy this year, so they're expecting to see the player that they got when he first transferred from Old Dominion. Tons of experience, and he's got really good range and very reliable tackler in the open field. So that's very important for a linebacker. And then obviously I think he's a guy that provides some value on special teams, 6'2", 232. And he will be in this class, I believe, because I also have him listed as a redshirt senior, Jim. So you were right on with that one.
Owen, what did you have on Wayne Matthews?
Yeah, so Wayne Matthews, 2021 was when he first played at Old Dominion, played in 3 games, special teams wise, and then took 15 snaps on their defense in 2022 as his redshirt freshman. So after his 2023 breakout season, went to Michigan State last year, averaged 27 snaps a game in the 9 games he did play through weeks 1 through 10. So he is a player that got a limited run last year at a higher level where he did have some splash plays, I think, especially when it came to using his bigger frame, 6'2", 235, able to get downhill and make some tackles in the run game. But for me, I think I need to see him ascend to that level, play and be an every down linebacker for Michigan State in the Big Ten, where you're going to get the ball rain on you. You're going to have to step up and be able to take on blocks and things like that. So not only it was a jump from Old Dominion to Michigan State last year, so that was kind of his wake up year. He kind of got brought along slowly, didn't get a ton of playing time. Not too bad. 20 plus snaps a game is not bad at all. But I do think he's going to have to be more of an entrenched starter for them this year if it's going to be someone that we're going to look at and be like, okay, this is going to be like a creeping into day two style player. I do think it's in there between the kind of quick twitch athleticism I saw him have combined with that size and some of the plays, some of the games I did watch of him at Michigan State last year. But yeah, I think he's going to be a guy that varies a lot depending on what year. Like we talked about a lot of guys that's going to matter what they do this season between Childs, and we talked about Gulbin with the center position. I think Matthews is one guy that can be like undrafted to round two or day two type player, depending on how he performs this year. Whereas some of these other guys, you already kind of pegged them into like what their range is going to be. Where Moody Matthews, not Wayne Gallman, is a much more wide variety type of player.
Yeah, I mainly saw him in 23 because ODU is one of the teams I covered that season. So he was an absolute heathen that year. I mean, he had games with 16, 14, 16, 15 tackles. I mean, he was just all over the field that year. But I agreed that he's going to have to do it against, a lot better talent in Michigan State this upcoming season. But I do have high hopes for him. I have a draftable grade on him. I don't know where y'all had him. I still have him as day 3, but with the arrow pointing up.
Yeah, I didn't really have him on anything, but I would probably agree day 3 right now seems like a good spot to put him, just based on what I've seen. And obviously, I trust you, who's watched Old Dominion a lot more than I have. I do know I watched a lot of Jason Henderson, who I'm excited to see back off of injury for them as well at linebacker.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, 2023, you just have both of those guys going crazy at linebacker.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I think right now it'd be day 3 for me, where it's kind of more of an incomplete grade because you don't really know what he's going to look like. If you go off if you were drafting off the Old Dominion tape in 2023, like he was in his past draft, and he maybe didn't play as well as you thought at Michigan State, I think he'd still be like a day 3 pick because you look back, see. I didn't watch Old Dominion tape, so I'm just going to take Dave's word for it that he was an absolute demon there. Actually, I can. If you're going from Old Dominion jumping straight to Michigan State, I do think that you have to have shown enough to be able to prove that. So I do think a team would have taken a swing on him with his size, athletic profile, and if he was good enough to go from Old Dominion to Michigan State, they'd probably take a day 3 swing on him, probably more closer to round 7. But I think that's why I'm thinking maybe he's going to be more of a wider variety type player, where if he comes out and plays like Old Dominion Wayne Matthews at Michigan State, then he could be a guy who moves up draft boards really quickly. I think we'll definitely be having to circle back around on him and see like November, December time what he looked like that past season.
And that's actually one of the things I'm looking forward to is what you just said, Owen. Like we're talking about players now, and then we're going to be talking about them again it's actually going to be 6 months, right? We'll talk about them a little bit along the way, but the detailed conversation starts 6 months from now. Obviously, a lot of football has to be played. I'm like chomping at the bit. Like, can the season get here already?
Yeah, same.
But one of the other things, like for Draft Professor, I asked, as people were joining the channel, I said I want to be able to cover the top 175, and one of the reasons for that is there's more volatility in round 4 rankings than there is in round 2 rankings. Right? Like we can go look at the Huddle Report contests, right? The Huddle Report contest, like if you're in the lead, you have like 86 or 87, and then you can be like me at like 83. I was like 1 behind Mel Kiper. Right? Like there's not a lot of volatility in the top 100. But when you get to like the top 175, when you start looking at the round 4 and 5 players, the way the 3 of you value something to take somebody in round 4 or 5 would be different. So there's more to discuss, specifically a player like Wayne Matthews, the linebacker from Michigan State. So
it would be the way the team that we follow and cover probably values them more so than us as well. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at.
And they all value different things, different schemes, different this, different that. So, yeah, you're day 3. You're looking, some teams are maybe still trying to find a starter. Some teams want special teams. Some teams want this. Some teams want that. So, yeah, it's always going to be like that.
Like covering the Eagles, Howie Roseman from like rounds 4 on, he's still looking for starters. He's throwing darts against the wall with the most athletic player. He's not trying to fill a role. He says he can fill those on waiver wires and training camp cuts, later in the season. he's still looking for starter caliber, talent at that time. So you have to change what you're, what I'm looking for. Somebody who I would rank, maybe not quite as high as Howie would because he was hurt or because he didn't have a good, like a guy like we just discussed, like Wayne Matthews could be somebody he would take in round 4 or 5 because the traits are there and the skill set that he's looking for is there, as opposed to somebody who probably don't even have them on their board.
And Dale follows the Bengals, which means he's looking at players for the Bengals that they won't be able to pay in 4 years.
well, that, and I was going to say the opposite of Howie Roseman. They are certainly trying to fill positions that they didn't pay from this free agency. So they're trying to fill roster spots.
You have to draft them faster than you lose them.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the flow in versus the flow out? I see a high school, or I see one of my college fluids dynamics problems where you're pouring water in, how much water's coming out, right? The rookies coming in, trying to replace the veterans that leave. But before we get off the rails too much, let's pause for a quick commercial. So Dale, do you want to let everybody know who you are, how they can find all of your other content?
Yeah, Dale Altman do a Bengals-related show called Bengals and Brews. We record Mondays, we're live on Mondays and Fridays at 3:30 p.m. You never know. You subscribe to the YouTube because sometimes we'll just do random pop-up shows. We were ranking Father's Day gifts on Saturday night, having some beers. So you just never know what's going to happen. So always just follow us, and then chaos ensues.
Owen.
Yeah, so just because you brought that up, that whole school problem, Jim, you gave me some PTSD as the only person in this call who's still actively taking classes in school right now. So thanks for reminding me that I have homework due tomorrow. But I was working with the scouting department over at the University of Buffalo. I'm now looking into getting my teaching degree at the University of Kenosha. So I'm taking up some coaching at the high school level right now. So I'm kind of dipping my toes in both ways, but always taking time to hop on here with Jim on Mondays and Wednesdays this summer. Wednesdays coming up this fall to talk D tackles and edges with Newt. And then over at my own YouTube channel, the Weekly Huddle podcast, where I have some videos coming up this week where I'm going to be posting some predictions for the season, which will lead into me and Bill talking about running through our first 2026 mock draft because Bill has 1,000 players already scouted for it. I'm just going to let him run wild I'll just provide the draft order there. And then also, like I was saying, Newt, another one of the draft professors, has been doing his series where he's recording videos of himself breaking down his top 10 players at the position for the upcoming season and looking at it through a summer scouting lens. So he's already done quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and he just released tight ends this week. Next up is going to be offensive tackles. He did preface that he has not yet watched a single offensive tackle, so it's going to be a bit before that one comes out. But we do have some other content and stuff on the way, so I do think I'll be posting a little bit more frequently there from myself, not just Newt. It's not just Newt's channel anymore, but you can find me there and also on Twitter at Weekly Huddle.
David.
For Eagles things, I cover the Eagles for Philly Sports Network and Metro Philly Paper. You can follow anything there if you have any interest in the Eagles, anybody's watching this. But if for draft stuff, you can go to my website, phillycovercorner.com, click on the analytics button, and you can find all 32 teams information. It's sounds Eagle-centric because of the name, because I guess that's how it was originally set up to try to be. But then I kind of went off the rails on this draft stuff. But also just a shout out to everybody on here. Like Dale is someone who I knew before I came on here, even though he didn't know me. I used to follow him some because I kind of peek at everybody who's covering NFL teams. Jim and I met probably over a year ago as well, long before this process started. Owen is somebody who I probably would have never known if it wasn't for Jim, and he has a really great eye. So if you're interested in draft stuff, you should give him a follow, because I have learned a lot from watching you. Again, you probably don't know I watch all of these, but when I have trouble sleeping at night, I have watched every one of these team shows that you guys have done, even without me in them, and I've paid attention to what everybody does, and I even jot down some notes and piss off my wife laying beside me because I turned my phone on and I'm sitting there, click, 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 click. She's like, what are you doing? I have to remember I have to turn my phone back off. But yeah, everybody on here has been amazing, man. I've learned a lot from all you guys. It's been a fun ride.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you.
Yeah,
That's great to have you on here and everything you do too, brother.
That's awesome.
We're still climbing the hill. Like, it's not even downhill yet. Like, I'm
I'm
having a
amazed
time
at
of my
how
life
young
here.
all these people are. Like Owen's going to school. You had some other dude who was in high school, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I can't even believe this is happening. You've
It's
definitely found some very unique talent, Jim, to say the least.
Well, thank you. So first of all, I do find it humorous is the wrong word, but pretty much I found just about everybody the same way, right? Somebody posts something on Twitter, I follow them and say, "Hey, do you want a podcast?" Oh, and I did meet on Discord and Joe Marino's Substack. But like other than Owen and Josh, I think everybody else was found on Twitter. Right, where they're just posting draft stuff. And I said, "Hey, do you want a podcast on the draft?" Right. And then everybody just let me manipulate their schedule to tell them what night their podcast. But like Owen didn't know Newt when they started. Right. It's you put
And now
good
they have a love-hate relationship. I can.
I'm gonna say that was love at first sight and then hate at second sight.
So
and hated every other site, actually.
Right.
if you want more draft content, follow the Draft Professor at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. We have daily draft content coming at you. Tomorrow night, they're covering South Carolina. Right.
That should
So
be fun.
that episode's going to have a few more players on it than the Michigan State one here that we're winding down. Then Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have some other content. Fridays, we're breaking down quarterbacks. We are about to spin up a Sunday show. So we will be prime time Sunday nights right after July 4th. So you'll be able to see Brian Maffey and whatever he and I come up with as his content for Sunday night. So daily draft content. As Dale said, you want to turn the notifications on because sometimes we just go live just because we can. That being said, there were three other players on Michigan State that were identified: Stanton Ramil, Jordan Hall, Jalen Thompson. David, did you have anything on any of those three 2027 guys?
I don't have anything on Stanton. Jordan Hall was kind of interesting. I thought he could be a guy who really steps up this year. Over the last 2 years, he looked pretty good. From what I read about him, he's a really strong leader, has a really high football IQ. He's definitely a physical presence out there on the field. And I had read somewhere that he was like the heart of the Spartans defense. So I don't see a lot of him because, again, I only watch like 2 or 3 games. But from what everybody is saying to me, like before I came on here, so I didn't sound completely ignorant, I asked people who I trusted, like what they thought of some of these guys and the 2027 guys in particular, because I hadn't really seen much of them. And he was one of the, players who they were looking forward to his development this season. And Thompson, I know a little bit about. He's pretty exciting player. He's got a pretty good frame, 6'3". I don't know what he weighs, but he's been pretty interesting. He has some experience the last 2 years with them. He's been a key contributor on their defense, but I don't know where he evolves this year because, again, I just haven't watched enough tape on him.
So Owen, Stanton Ramil, Jordan Hall, Jalen Thompson. Do you have anything on any of the three?
So Hall was the one player that I have with total blind spot for him. That's one of the ones I was hoping to. I will learn just as much as everybody else watching will learn about Jordan Hall here. But for me, the other one's Ramil. He was their left tackle last year. Last year was his first time starting for them, and we were playing college ball in general. Like, it was his first full season as a starter, at least for Michigan State especially. So he was their left tackle. He's going to continue being their left tackle. That was the kind of the reason they moved more to right tackle, is they just already had a guy that they wanted to continue rolling out there at left tackle in Ramil. So he started out a little strong against some weaker competition the first week against FAU. But I mean, and according to PFF grades, especially, I didn't watch all the games, obviously, but he progressively didn't, like, he had some up and downs. He had some games towards the end of the season where you could see he had a little bit more progression. In the games I did watch, you could see some of the inexperience with some of the technique. He has some movement ability, but I think he's definitely someone who's going to be needing to prove a lot to rise up boards, especially this season. He's going to be a guy who I think would definitely benefit from coming back another season. And then with Thompson, for Dave, he's listed 6'3", 259 here, so 260 on PFF Ultimate. And he played between the last two seasons 587 snaps for the Michigan State Spartans. I almost said Wolverines.
Michigan State Wolverines. That was funny.
Pissed off every Michigan State fan in existence. But Thompson, he's a guy who's got size. He's got athleticism. He shows off some power, especially in the run game, being able to long arm guys, leverage, and get some guys off their base. So I do think he has some good elements to his game right now. But for me, I think he had like 2 sacks last season. I don't know why I say I think. I don't have it up in front of me. So he had 2 sacks in 2023 and then 1 sack in 2024, which the 1 sack came against FAU in week 1. So he went 13 consecutive games after that without any sacks and had only 11 hurries the whole season and 1 quarterback hit. So he's a guy that is super underdeveloped as a pass rusher. He has tools, can impact the run game, but just needs to develop more. Another guy that if he doesn't magically put it all together this upcoming season, could probably benefit from another season following that in his true senior year for the 2027 draft.
Okay. And Dale, you want to give us the big finish for what you have on Stanton Ramil, I believe left tackle, Jordan Hall, I don't have a position down, and Jalen Thompson is an edge.
Yeah, Jordan Hall's a linebacker. Redshirt sophomore left tackle, Stanton Ramil. He had 58.7 pass block grade, 55.4 run block grade in 2024, allowed 29 pressures and 3 sacks. So, but he's very young. Like I said, only a redshirt sophomore, and he did get better, especially as the season went. 2 of his better games at the end against Purdue and Rutgers. Pretty good athlete, quick feet, but he's dealt with some injuries so far in his career. I think he's just likely a 2027 guy. I mean, he could even be later than that, honestly, only being a redshirt sophomore. But there's certainly a lot of upside with him, a lot of talent, and that's why they want to keep him at left tackle and Moore's playing right tackle, as Owen said. Jordan Hall, 6'3", 236, junior linebacker, ideal size, great instincts, high football IQ, but only had 1 start in 2024. So it's kind of weird that Wayne Matthews didn't have a ton of time, but neither did Jordan Hall. And now they're both the starters. So I don't know what was going on there. But in 2023, he had 67 tackles and 4.5 sacks as a true freshman. So that's where he really showed his potential. I think he had a really good game I was watching some of against Ohio State in 2023 as well. And he made some plays even last year against them. But it's just, can he take a big step this year? Maybe another guy that's 2027 guy, but I think there's a lot to like with Jordan Hall. I think eventually, especially if he gets back to freshman form, he could certainly be a lot higher when all is said and done. And then Thompson, I don't have too much on. I had 253, but 259, so good size. He just now turned 20 in May, and I think he seemed like a better run defender right now than pass rusher. There's still a lot of work to do in that area, but a guy very young with a lot of upside as well. May also be a 2027 guy. And I'll even give you one more, Jim. This guy's a senior, redshirt senior. Elijah Tolliver, transfer from Sacramento State. So penciled in as starting running back for Michigan State this year. Had almost 1,000 yards and 317 receiving yards with 9 total touchdowns last year. I watched some of his Sacramento State tape. He's a bit of an upright runner and a thin cut frame, but he's got pretty good speed and vision. So he's just a guy to keep an eye on, see how he produces at the next level. And Sacramento State got me excited because Cam Scatterboo. So, he went and did well at Arizona State. So I'm like, hey, you got to at least mention this guy.
So can you repeat the Michigan State running back name?
Yeah, Elijah Tolliver. So it's like T-A-U. I'm probably saying that wrong, but.
Okay. I will go look that up because
the
running back,
just somebody to watch.
The running back scouting reports board was not as long. Running back and cornerback right now, those boards don't look as long as they need to be at this time of year. So if somebody gives me a new running back name, I'm adding it to the list and having people sort through it. So
there you go.
Well, we are 75 minutes deep. For Dale, David, Owen, myself, the 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on a podcast again next week.